What if the color of your eyes wasn't just biology, but a doorway? Have you ever paused long enough to ask why your eyes hold the shade they do? Most of us accept it as a simple genetic outcome, a detail we never question. Yet Carl Jung invites us into a deeper mystery, one where nothing about the body is random and everything visible may be rooted in the invisible. Your eye color, he believed, could reflect more than DNA. It may carry symbolic hints about your temperament, your inner archetype, and even your role in the great myth of your life. The way your eyes catch the light, the depth of their hue, the feeling they evoke in others, these aren't merely cosmetic features. They may be mirrors to your unconscious, revealing truths you haven't yet spoken. According to Jung, we each carry within us a psychic blueprint, a pattern drawn not only from personal memory, but from the vast ocean of the collective unconscious. What if your eyes are one of the ways that pattern makes itself known? What if their color is not a fixed trait, but a quiet symbol whispering truths about your soul's architecture? This isn't about science versus spirit. It's about merging the two, about standing in front of a mirror, looking into your own gaze, and realizing that those eyes have been speaking to you all along, just not in words. Jung taught that the unconscious communicates through symbol, and that symbol is never shallow. It's rich, layered, emotional, and alive. Your eyes may not define you, but they might reveal something essential, a clue, a tone, a frequency your soul has chosen for a reason. Why do we say the eyes are the windows to the soul? Why can a single glance feel like it knows us before we've ever spoken? Why does someone's gaze stir something ancient in us, something both intimate and eternal? Jung would say it's because we are recognizing a pattern, one that exists outside of time, outside of language. It's archetypal, it's sacred, it's encoded in the way humans have always related to eyes, as portals between the seen and unseen, between the self and the world. In every mythology, in every culture, the eye is not just an organ, it's a symbol of power, mystery, danger, protection, and divinity. The all-seeing eye, the evil eye, the third eye, the eye of Horus. Whether it warns or reveals, blinds or awakens, the eye is always more than it appears. And if that's true for the symbol of the eye in general, could it also be true for yours in particular? This is not fortune-telling. This is not about stereotypes. It's about asking deeper questions. What psychological resonance might your eye color reflect? What part of your inner landscape is speaking through their hue? What story might they be trying to help you remember? Your eyes are not an accident. They are a symbol. And symbols, Jung said, are the soul's language. Why is it that we so often trust what we see in the mirror, but never question what's looking back through our own eyes? From childhood, we are subtly taught to observe the world, to evaluate, to compare, to conform. The gaze turns outward. Am I acceptable? Do I fit in? But few ever pause to explore the silent presence behind the eyes. Who is it that is truly seeing? And what does the gaze we carry into the world say about the one within? Carl Jung believed that what appears to be on the surface is, in truth, a projection of something far deeper. He taught that the human psyche is not just shaped by personal experience, but by ancient, inherited patterns of behavior, memory, and energy, what he called the archetypes. These are not merely abstract ideas. They are psychic seeds, mythic patterns that influence how we love, how we suffer, how we protect ourselves, and how we unconsciously repeat the same cycles. They do not live only in our dreams or symbols. Jung saw them reflected in the very body itself, subtle traces in the way we carry ourselves, in our posture, in the way we breathe, and most profoundly in our eyes. The eye, in Jung's view, is not just an organ of sight, but a symbolic gateway, a living mirror of the soul's architecture. If the body is the stage where the unconscious performs, then the eyes are the spotlight revealing its most intimate truths. The gaze is never neutral. It holds memory, energy, longing, and the silent echo of what we've endured or inherited. And this gaze, including the color that surrounds it, might reveal more about who we are than we've ever imagined. This is why Jung insisted on the sacred unity of the psyche and soma. Your physical form, including your eye color, is not merely the outcome of genetic math. It is an expression of deeper psychic forces, sometimes shaped over generations. So when you ask, "Why do I have these eyes?" you are really asking, what archetypal truth lives in me, waiting to be seen? Color, in this context, is not a label but a symbol. Across every culture, colors carry emotional and psychological resonance. Blue reflects coolness, introspection, and the search for spiritual truth. Brown brings the earthy grounding of stability, warmth, and ancestral wisdom. Green hints at renewal, transformation, and the energy of healing. Gray invites solitude, balance, and reflection. Hazel holds duality, complexity, and changeability. Black or deeply dark eyes draw us into the mystery, the power of the unknown, the shadow. These colors do not have fixed meanings. They are frequencies. They carry the same symbolic weight as seasons or phases of the moon, reminding us that our appearance is not decoration, but communication. To know your gaze is to begin to know your soul. At certain moments in life, we stop and realize that what we've been searching for may not be found in the outside world, but in the quiet resonance of our own gaze. That gaze, especially when filtered through blue eyes, carries more than pigment. It carries a pattern, a story, an invisible yearning that often began before we had words to name it. In the symbolic language of the psyche, blue is not merely a color, it is a calling. It evokes distance, depth, silence, and the vast spaces of longing. To carry blue eyes is, perhaps, to carry the mark of the seeker, the one who walks through life with the questions still open. Carl Jung spoke often of archetypes as living energies that shape not just our thoughts, but the very structure of our emotions and behaviors. The seeker is one such archetype. It does not settle, does not accept the ordinary explanation, and does not find peace in superficiality. People with blue eyes often embody this subtle ache for something more, something beyond the visible veil. From a young age, they may have questioned the nature of existence, sensing dishonesty behind smiling faces or sadness behind closed doors. The world often mistook their introspection for distance, their stillness for detachment, when in truth, their eyes were tuned inward toward an inner world that pulsed with silent questions. To be the seeker is to live between worlds. The external world demands action, certainty, and identity, while the inner world whispers mystery, ambiguity, and feeling. The blue-eyed soul may often retreat, not to escape, but to make sense. They tend to be highly attuned to the subtle music of emotions, not through expression, but through absorption. They listen without words. They read what goes unsaid. They notice when the mood in a room shifts, even before anyone speaks. It is a sensitivity that doesn't shout, but resonates like the echo of a bell far beneath the surface. But every archetype carries its shadow. The seeker's strength lies in depth, but its wound lies in exile. There is a danger in endless searching. Some become so accustomed to the ache that they forget what it feels like to arrive. Always looking, always questioning, they may find it difficult to rest in the moment or connect fully with others. Their gaze can feel distant, not because they are absent, but because they are looking through the present into something they can't quite grasp. There may be a loneliness here, a sense of not being fully seen, or worse, being misunderstood as cold when they are, in fact, burning with quiet intensity. Yet within this paradox lies their gift. When the blue-eyed seeker no longer needs the world to mirror their worth, when they accept that their gaze is not a flaw, but a window to a deeper truth, they begin to transform. They stop chasing answers and begin living the questions. They create meaning where none was given. Their presence no longer asks to be understood, but becomes a mirror for others to recognize. Their own longing. The light in their eyes becomes not an invitation to look at them, but a doorway to look within. Blue eyes are not merely seen, they see. And when this sight is turned inward, when the seeker becomes still enough to recognize the sacredness of their own inner world, they become the mystic. Not someone who escapes life, but someone who enters it with the full depth of soul. Someone who no longer asks, "Where do I belong?" but instead becomes the place others come to when they long to remember who they truly are. In a world captivated by rarity, it is easy to overlook what is most grounded. Brown eyes, often dismissed as ordinary, carry a quiet majesty that speaks not to spectacle, but to soul. These are the eyes of the guardian, the earthly spirit whose strength is not shouted but felt. Symbolically, brown eyes resonate with the archetype of the protector, the rooted presence who holds the emotional scaffolding of others with a loyalty so seamless, it often goes unseen. Jung would describe this as a deeply embedded psychic role, the one who contains, who bears, who endures. Whether male or female, the bearer of brown eyes may unconsciously take on the mother archetype, not in the literal sense of nurturing children, but in the deeper psychic act of becoming a vessel for the emotional storms of others. From an early age, these souls learn to listen before speaking, to offer comfort before receiving it, to stabilize when others collapse. There is something immovable in them, a steadiness that others instinctively turn to in times of crisis. They are often the emotional anchor in their families, communities, and relationships, sometimes praised for their reliability, other times taken for granted. This caretaking instinct is beautiful, but it is also perilous. The same qualities that make them dependable can render them invisible. In trying to be everything for everyone, they may forget how to be something for themselves. Jung cautioned us against over-identification with roles, even noble ones. When the guardian fuses too completely with the archetype of strength, they risk becoming a shadow of themselves, mute in their own narrative, drained by a devotion that goes unreciprocated. Their needs grow quiet, their voice goes dormant, and yet they continue to give, believing this is love. But strength that ignores the self becomes servitude. The true journey of the brown-eyed soul is not to abandon its nature, but to reclaim it. To realize that being a pillar does not require self-silencing, that loyalty must not come at the price of self-worth, that their capacity to nurture is magnified, not diminished, when it includes their own inner world, and when they finally turn that steadfast gaze inward, not to fix others, but to feel themselves, they awaken not just as protectors, but as healers. Brown eyes do not seek to dazzle, they seek to root. Their power lies not in light, but in depth. They are not the flame, they are the soil from which the flame rises, and from that depth, entire forests begin to grow. There is something undeniably otherworldly about green eyes, as if they hold the memory of both forest and flame. Their rarity is not just genetic, it is symbolic. These are not merely eyes that see, but eyes that sense. They seem to peer into places others dare not look. Often described as mysterious, wild, or intense, green eyes do not hypnotize by accident. What they evoke in others is the quiet recognition of an inner paradox, the presence of both gentleness and fire, serenity and storm. In Jungian psychology, this paradox reflects the archetype of the alchemist, the soul whose journey is not to avoid pain, but to transmute it. Green, the color that lives between blue and yellow, is the sacred bridge. Blue holds the cold depths of feeling, introspection, and intuition. Yellow carries the heat of fire, confidence, and will. Green is what happens when these opposites learn to dance. And so it is with green-eyed individuals. They are not warriors, nor are they mystics. They are both. They live at the seam between worlds, constantly weaving the inner and outer, the emotional and the rational, the spiritual and the human. Their path is rarely smooth. To carry the energy of the alchemist is to be repeatedly undone. These souls often move through cycles of disintegration and rebirth. They may experience periods where their entire identity collapses, where relationships fall away, careers lose meaning, and even their sense of self becomes unrecognizable. Yet from these ashes, something extraordinary emerges, not a replica of who they were, but a more integrated version of who they are becoming. Such a transformation is never gentle. It demands that they face their shadow over and over again. It may appear as heartbreak, emotional overwhelm, or crises of identity. But beneath each trial is a secret invitation to deeper wholeness. Because of their emotional intensity, green-eyed individuals are often drawn to fields that allow them to explore and integrate the psyche. Healing, art, philosophy, psychology, and spiritual traditions. They carry an unconscious drive to bring opposites into union, to take what is fragmented and make it whole. Yet their shadow lies in the very nature of transformation itself. Some become addicted to the fire, constantly reinventing, endlessly seeking, afraid of stillness. They may stir emotional waters just to feel alive. They may unconsciously provoke others, not from malice, but from a deep longing to wake up what has gone numb. The true task of the green-eyed soul is to learn that alchemy is not always loud, that wholeness is not found in endless upheaval, but in sacred integration. That peace, too, can be a revolution. Their gift is not in eliminating parts of themselves, but in holding their contradictions like a chalice, containing both shadow and light, rage and tenderness, grief and grace. And when they learn to walk this path consciously, they radiate not just beauty, but truth. They become rare not because of the color of their eyes, but because of the light they have forged in the fire of their own becoming. While we've explored the more well-known hues of blue, brown, and green, not all eyes fit neatly into these visible archetypes. Some shimmer between identities, some defy categories entirely. These are the eyes that do not reveal, but rather conceal, those that shift, that absorb, that carry within them the mystery of the in-between. And according to Jung, it is in the unknown where true transformation resides. It is now that we turn toward the quiet, overlooked power of hazel, gray, and black eyes, those that whisper rather than speak, yet leave an imprint on the soul. Hazel eyes are mercurial, like the alchemist's flame that cannot be pinned to a single element. They are earth and air, fire and shadow, brown one day, green the next, flecked with sunlight or veiled in storm. In the symbolic language of the psyche, hazel eyes mirror the shapeshifter archetype: fluid, elusive, complex. These individuals move between emotional states not from instability, but from inner multiplicity. They wear many masks, not to deceive, but because they can see them. Jung warned us not of the mask itself, but of becoming it. The hazel-eyed soul sees behind masks, yours and their own. This is why so many feel exposed yet safe in their presence. Their gaze seems to say, "You're already known here," and yet therein lies the paradox. Because they are everything for everyone, they may forget who they are alone. They adapt not only to survive, but to be accepted, and in doing so, they risk becoming invisible to themselves. But when this archetype is embraced, when the shapeshifter integrates rather than escapes, they become rare vessels of compassion, synthesis, and insight. They bridge opposites. They don't fracture under complexity, they hold it. Gray eyes are the watchers, the quiet sages of the inner world. Rare in number and rarer in presence, their neutrality is deceptive. Gray absorbs. It does not shout. It listens. The gray-eyed individual embodies the hermit, the seer, the one who studies without judgment and carries the weight of knowing. They see what others miss: emotional patterns, social fractures, the subtle arc of time. But this insight often comes at a cost: isolation, doubt, emotional withdrawal. Jung wrote that thinking, when not joined with feeling, becomes sterile. The gray-eyed soul must learn that clarity does not require coldness. When they choose to share their insight rather than protect it, they awaken others, not with noise, but with quiet truth. And people follow, not because they demand it, but because true perception is magnetic. Then come the black eyes, or rather, the very dark eyes that feel like portals to something ancient, primal, and vast. These are not just eyes. They are mirrors of the shadow, the keeper of the unconscious. Their stillness is thunderous. Their presence is undeniable. Others project onto them desires, fears, and fantasies, not realizing the soul behind the gaze feels it all. Jung warned that to be a carrier of projections is to risk being exiled or worshipped without ever being seen. The dark-eyed individual is a container, a vessel for what others cannot face. But they must remember, they are not what others see in them. Their silence is not emptiness. It is the womb of transformation. When they bring their depth into the light, they don't become brighter. They become anchored. Not stars, but gravity. And in that grounded presence, they help others weather the fire of change, not by extinguishing it, but by holding steady while others burn and rebuild. These eye colors, hazel, gray, and black, are not accidents of biology. They are symbols of inner architecture, and within them lies the possibility of individuation, of becoming not what others need, but who one truly is. In the tapestry of the human soul, not all eyes conform to simple classifications. Beyond the more familiar blues, browns, and greens lie the eyes that resist being defined: hazel, gray, and those almost black in depth. They shimmer like riddles, shifting like smoke between light and shadow, belonging to no single archetype, yet whispering ancient truths from the subconscious. These are not merely pigments of the iris, but windows into complex psychic realities that challenge our desire for certainty. Hazel eyes, for instance, refuse to be one thing. Sometimes green, sometimes brown, sometimes golden under the right light. These eyes reveal the essence of the shapeshifter. In Jungian terms, this archetype represents the soul that lives between worlds, navigating contradiction with ease, yet often burdened by it. These individuals mirror back to others their own masks, yet struggle privately with the question, "Who am I when no one is watching?" Their mutability is not deceit, but a survival intelligence, a way of belonging everywhere and nowhere at once. Their challenge is not to become fixed, but to accept their multiplicity as sacred. When they do, they stop performing and start synthesizing. They become bridges between perspectives, capable of seeing and healing what rigid identities cannot. Gray eyes carry another mystery entirely. They evoke the archetype of the silent observer, the internal sage who sees without needing to be seen. Neither black nor white, gray holds paradox without flinching. Individuals with gray eyes often walk quietly at the edge of the social stage, gathering meaning, perceiving patterns, absorbing more than they express. But this contemplative clarity, if left unchecked, can become a prison of the intellect. They may begin to watch life rather than live it, mistaking detachment for safety. Yet, when feeling is allowed to accompany thought, when warmth is given space beside wisdom, they become profound guides. Their insight doesn't seek applause. It simply exists, radiant in its stillness, like a lighthouse seen only by those lost at sea. And then there are the very dark eyes, black as the night ocean. They seem to hold secrets untouched by time. In symbolic language, they align with the shadow, not as something to be feared, but as the hidden source of transformation. These individuals often evoke reactions they never intended: awe, suspicion, desire, distance. Others project onto them what they cannot face in themselves. But in truth, these dark-eyed souls are keepers of depth. Their silence is not coldness, it is containment. Their stillness is not indifference, it is ancient listening. The danger lies only when they believe the world's projections, suppressing their truth out of fear. But when they learn to hold space for the unseen, without absorbing it, they become rare anchors of healing. They don't chase light, they become the womb in which light is born. Each of these eye colors reveals not just beauty, but a psychological invitation to move beyond appearances and into the archetypal truths our souls carry in silence. By now, it is no longer possible to see eye color as a mere biological feature. It is an imprint of meaning, a mirror of archetypal energy, a quiet emblem of the unconscious psyche at work. Blue, brown, green, hazel, gray, black. These are not just pigments of biology, but expressions of inner vibration. Yet beyond the surface hue lies something more revelatory, more intimate: the gaze. It is the gaze that animates color into spirit. It is the gaze that carries the story of the soul. Through the eyes, we do not just observe the world, we transmit something essential about our inner world. As Jung often reminded us, we are born not only into personal history, but into the vast symbolic inheritance of the collective unconscious. Within it reside the archetypes, those timeless forces that shape the way each of us sees, feels, and relates. These archetypes live within every soul, silent yet active, hidden yet powerful. And the eyes, situated at the threshold between the visible and the invisible, reveal which archetypes are awake, which are repressed, and which are longing to emerge. The gaze is not just how we see, but how we speak, without words. It delivers emotion, memory, and intention. It reveals whether we are still hiding behind the mask of the persona or daring to stand as our true selves. And here begins the sacred work of individuation. To individuate is to make conscious that which has been unconscious. It is to face the shadow, the pain, the joy, the fear, and the brilliance that have been exiled within. It is to look in the mirror and finally ask, through whose eyes am I seeing? Am I looking out from my wounded child, from the abandoned self, the anxious critic, the perfectionist, or from the healed adult, the one who has made peace with contradiction? This is why the gaze matters, because when we change the consciousness behind our gaze, we change the direction of our life. A soft, steady gaze often belongs to someone who has wrestled with their own darkness and come through not hardened, but human. It is not emptiness you see in their eyes, it is presence. Not performance, but peace. Such a gaze carries the imprint of the wounded healer, one who transforms suffering into empathy, judgment into understanding. So the question is no longer, what do others see when they look at me? But what is looking out from within me? When we stop projecting and start witnessing, when we stop defending and start seeing, we reclaim the sacred power of the gaze. Not to judge, but to understand. Not to control, but to connect. You do not need rare eyes to carry rare wisdom. You do not need the perfect color to be a bearer of deep perception. The gaze is the soul's signature, and the eyes are its sacred messengers. You came into this world with a gaze no one else possesses, not because of your eyes, but because of your consciousness. And now that you've turned that gaze inward, the soul has awakened. And once the soul begins to see itself, it never turns away again. If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.